want to talk to you about the most amazing, wonderful little plant that grows all the way across East and Southern Africa that you've probably seen in your life but have never taken note of or noticed or even were aware that it is edible. I'm talking, of course, about the most beautiful, beautiful little orange fruit, Mukokolo. And this fruit is beautiful in flavor, beautiful in color, and the amazing number of things you can do with it is almost endless. And it took a friend of mine pointing out this plant late in my 30s for me to take note of it and to embrace the wonders and joys that you can get from working with this beautiful, beautiful indigenous plant. Mukokolo is quite a conspicuous plant in that it grows to up to like 6 to 8 meters, and of course it gets this bright yellow fruit, but has a very thorny branch structure. So it's very hard to miss, but because it's used so often as an ornamental plant to make hedges, to make barriers for plots or for land to keep people out, we often think of it as that kind of tool as opposed to an edible product as well. And I think the thorns and the tart flavor make it a lot less approachable, and people feel a bit more intimidated and relegated to, well, that's not really edible, is it? Or is it worth the time? So today I want to tuck into a little bit of how we can use this little plant and how to maximize what it has to offer without compromising on quality food experience. As this is a fruit that is native to so many different parts of Africa, it of course has many different names. The most common name most people know it by is the Kei Apple, so named after the Kei River in South Africa. Kei means sand in one of the Khoi languages, and I don't know why they went with apple because it looks so much like a plum or an apricot, but colonialists are gonna do what a colonialist gonna do. As a Shona speaker, I know it is Mukokolo or Munungura, Mushishirondo, Muchorichoto, and in a few other languages across the continent, it is also known as Putukila, Kokolo, Umbambane, Mohlono, Muwamba, Ngundo, and Kayaba. Mukokolo are very easy to grow from either seed germination directly or from taking stem cuttings and just put that in a bit of rooting powder and let it root before you put it in the ground. Mukokolo have also adapted to growing across many different kind of environments and within different climates, as they're quite drought and frost resistant and can grow within relatively infertile soils, ranging from sandy soils, loamy soils, all the way to clay and silt. When it comes to using the plant within food, you can eat, obviously, the fruit itself. It's quite tart in flavor, so really nice in a vinegar, citrus kind of context. But the leaves themselves as well are quite wonderful, and they have a nice little light flavor and fragrance to them that you can steep in water to make teas, to make sodas. There are a few different ways you can use this plant. And if you have plant-eating animals within your region, you'll likely know that they eat both the leaves as fodder and the fruits as well. Mukokolo trees come as distinct male and female varieties. So if you want to plant some around your property or within your neighborhood, you're gonna need at least 2 or 3 plants to ensure you got both a male and a female within that equation to get to fruits. Otherwise, you're just growing a pretty looking bush. These fruits have been known to be safe for consumption for a really long time. In terms of flavor, they most really resemble apricots to me, with a little bit of passion fruit in there and a whole lot of lemon. So quite a fresh, fruity, summertime kind of flavor. And this suits these kind of plants well in the context of making syrups, cordials, jams, sherbets, sorbets, anything, you know, fresh and refreshing. But of course you can use them in more savory applications as well, like in sauces, in salad dressings, vinaigrettes, that sort of thing. If you're looking for pop of freshness, a little bit of like a citrus flavor and something a little bit contrary to creamy, rich kind of flavor. Mohlono fruit has ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous amounts of vitamin C, or also known as ascorbic acid. And this is what lends such a tart flavor profile to this plant. For comparison's sake, Mohlono has about 83 milligrams of vitamin C for every 100 grams of fresh fruit. Apples have 4.6 milligrams, oranges 53 milligrams, and lemons also 53. So imagine the most tangy sour lemon you've ever had and know that it's about maybe 2/3 the level of intensity as a Kei Apple actually is. And what's nice about that is very little goes a very long way. So for today, we are going to dedicate our time and effort into making a Kei Apple jam. To start off with, we need about maybe 2 cups of Kei Apple and 2 cups of brown sugar and a little bit of water, and that can get us started really good. So the first thing I'm going to do is take 2 or 3 little small plates or saucers, put them in the freezer, and we're going to use them later. We're going to wash our fruits thoroughly and either chop them roughly, or if they're soft enough, hand crush them in an appropriate size pot, and then pop them in with our water. The next step then is to place the pot over medium to high heat and bring the whole mixture to a boil, stirring occasionally to break down the fruit. And once the mixture reaches a boil, reduce to a simmer and continue cooking until everything is broken down, and this took about 2 to 3 minutes in my case. Then we remove our little fruit cook from the heat and strain through a sieve to separate the skins and seeds and save them for later use. If you have a blender, you can skip this first process entirely and pop the fruits in the blender with the least amount of water necessary to get a puree going. And once you've done the blending of the puree, then just pass it through the strainer like we did with the hot processed fruit. So the next part now that we need to look into is figuring out how much fruit we actually have, how much fruit puree we've managed to separate from the skins and the pips. And just use measuring cup, measuring jug, get to know how much you've made, and then we need an equal amount of brown sugar. Why brown sugar? Because I say so, but also I love brown sugar and the flavor notes that it always brings to any cooking. So we combine our equal parts brown sugar with equal parts Kei Apple fruit puree, put that in a pot, and if I'm doing about 2 cups of fruit, I'll add about a pinch of salt. If you're going to be cooking a lot more jam, I like to go with about 1/4 teaspoon for every liter of fruit puree. So we got our 3 ingredients, pop them on the stove again and bring back to boil. This time, the moment it starts boiling, bring the temperature to a medium low and let that slowly cook over time. We're trying to get rid of the moisture within the fruit puree and also get some flavor development, and ultimately we're gonna know our jam is ready when it passes our little doneness test. While our jam is cooking, it is critical that we take the time to sterilize some storage containers. And I like to use glass jars with metallic lids. And the first step to sterilizing those jars is to clean them thoroughly and then visually inspect them for any cracks, any defects that may introduce contamination or cause the glass to break during our cooking and sterilization and packaging processes. After washing thoroughly with soap and rinsing them out with some warm water, I'm going to put my jars in some room temperature water in a pot with enough water to cover everything, and then I'm going to bring that to a boil. We're going to boil for at least 10 to 15 minutes, and this 10 to 15 minute window of rapid boiling is necessary for us to get rid of most of the microorganisms within the environment, within the glass, within the water. It's not 100% guaranteed, but it does a much better job than just washing and rinsing. I like to sterilize my jars about 20 minutes before I think my jam is going to be ready, so that both the jam and the jars are at a similar temperature when I do our packaging. And so now we're going to return to our jam making process, and the first thing we're going to do is do our doneness test. And all that involves is grabbing one of those pre-chilled saucers or plates that you put in the freezer and dropping a teaspoon of jam on it and then turning it onto its side and watch how the jam moves on the plate. If the jam is very slow and viscous, it means we're probably in the right spot for it. But if it runs quickly down the plate, it means you still need to cook a little bit more. If the jam does not flow at all, you may have cooked it too far, and what I do in that case, just add some water back into the jam, stir that in, make sure it's mixed throughout, and then do the test again in a few minutes. Once you are happy that you've got the desired consistency for your jam, we're going to remove the saucepan from the heat and let the jam cool for a few minutes while covered. At the same time, our jars and lids are now coming out of the hot water onto some clean cloths turned upside down to let the water drain out. And while our glassware and jam are still warm, we're going to pour the jam into the jars, leaving about 1 centimeter of headspace at the top, and then immediately seal the jars tightly with the lids and let them cool completely before introducing them to the fridge or a cool, dark place for long-term storage. And now to enjoy our hard labor, we're gonna get a bagel, some bread, a baguette. I'm gonna toast my bagel and I'm gonna grab the freshly toasted bottom half, pop that on my plate here nicely. And we're gonna spread on a nice dollop of some sour milk. I just pass through some muslin cloth or cheesecloth. This is going to give us some refreshing contrast to the sweetness of the jam, as well adding a little bit of its own funk to it since this is fermented milk. Then we're going to go in with a drizzle of our fresh Mukokolo jam. Just let that run across. No real need to spread it because it's thin enough. And this is going to be such an amazing little complex concoction of flavors. The toasted warm bagel or bread, the fresh and sweet and tangy jam, and the nice mild creamy texture of the amasi. So this is exactly what you expect from a bagel. We've got a nice chewy dough here. We've got the creaminess of the cream cheese equivalent, which is our sour milk that's been passed through a filter. And then the jam is giving some freshness, some excitement. Because the dough and the milk, mild, gentle flavors, go with anything. The jam really is the showcase, party stopper, feature flavor here. Now, if you're wondering what happened to the skins and the seeds that we saved way earlier on, I took the fruit pulp and the seeds and the skins, added a little bit of yeast, fermented that for a few days, and got myself a refreshing little drink. I'm sorry.